9 days ago, my son had symptoms, high fever and a cough. Phoned 111 and they said, isolate yourself, which he did. He was really poorly. He didn't get any worse, but he didn't get any better for some time, up to day 7. By day 7, he just started to come round a little bit. He was eating a little bit, and he got up and went to the toilet. So he was improving then. That was day 7. Unfortunately, on day 7, he suddenly got really bad in the afternoon, and my daughter-in-law phoned the ambulance to come. They came within 10 minutes, but in that 10 minutes, he just collapsed and died.
Oh, Maureen,
now,
I'm so sorry.
She wants to know, how safe is it for her to go in the bedroom? She won't go in because she said it's so full of virus in there.
Yeah.
How long do you have to wait before you feel that it's safe?
Look, Maureen, I'm so sad. I could come and give you a hug if I could.
Oh, no,
I'm so
that's
sorry.
Exactly what I need. I've lost my son,
Yeah.
and my family can't come near me.
I feel your pain. I would give you a big hug if I could. And it's so sad. It really is. You bring tears to my eyes. I'm sorry.
I know. The doctor is upset. And,
yeah.
Maureen, while the doctor just gathers himself, can I ask you, and I don't want to pry, can you tell me more about your son?
Okay, he's a London cab driver. He's 50. He was 57. No underlying, no health conditions at all. And he, if I just say, in that 10 minutes, he got out of bed to go to the toilet, he suddenly collapsed on the floor. My daughter-in-law, unfortunately, is high risk because she's got diabetes and asthma, but tried to give him mouth-to-mouth herself, but it didn't work. And the paramedics tried for about an hour, and that didn't work. And so now he's with coroner. And
look,
it's such a shock because
Yes.
it was so sudden, so severe that she now doesn't know what to do. She won't go in, not for any other reason. She said she wants to go in and make the bed, because she's been sleeping in the lounge now, so she wants to go in and have a look at. But she just won't go in case it's full of virus.
Look, Maureen, don't worry about that room. Most of these viruses will have perished over a period of time, and just take it easy. I don't want you to feel that place is virulent and it's going to harm you. You just allow some time, and if you can't bear it, just give it some time. You can go into that room quietly, gently, when you're ready for it. I wouldn't worry that, look, there are these viruses hanging out there waiting to harm you. If you wish, give it a little surface cleaning, especially the plastic areas where the virus persists for longer than on fabrics and soft furnishings. Okay. I am very sorry. Please take care. I know.
Well, the whole world is a very sad place at the moment, isn't it?
Maureen, can I ask you? You're not living in the same place.
Oh no, but not very far. I'm just across the road. Yes, yeah.
Right.
So I all the time that he was there. Of course, I couldn't see him. And
now you've lost him, and you still can't see him.
Nobody went near. And we've done all the right things as far as we know. We've tried hard. So my other sons haven't even come down. I haven't even seen them because I won't let them come.
And you haven't seen your son?
I haven't been out, so I know that I'm okay. I haven't been anywhere near anybody for more than a week. So, but I don't want to chance giving anything to anybody.
Of course. But you must still be in shock.
Oh, absolutely. It's still a bit unreal, isn't it? The whole life that we've got now is unreal.
How worried were you about him when he fell ill? How worried were you about him when he fell ill?
Worried about?
About your son. How worried were you? Or did you assume he'd get better?
How worried was I? Well, no, not worried. Not terribly, because he didn't get worse. And everybody says, well, it's you get better out of that virus. It's just, and so he was, and he just started to get better. And I thought, well, that's good. That's the 7 days. That's what they tell you. But it just didn't. Something went wrong somewhere with his body. I don't know what happens with the virus. I know sometimes it goes to the chest. The paramedics said that he was congested, but just to suddenly collapse and in no time at all, in 1 second.
So sudden.
It's just unreal, yeah.
How's your daughter-in-law? How's she getting on?
How is she? Well, she's in shock, completely. I don't think she realises what's going on. I think she's all right, and they've got an 18-year-old daughter that's there, affecting her quite badly. But my daughter-in-law she's okay. She's coping, all things considered. But then I think sometimes you do when it's very new. It's just not real, is it?
And this isolation, this isolation, I mean, the doctor is right.
No, she's got to be isolated.
Yes.
You can't even see her now.
But the business of not being able to hug each other at a time like this and console each other.
You so much need somebody to hug you, don't you?
It's so cruel. It's so cruel.
It is, absolutely. That's the sad part, that we're all alone. She's alone. I'm alone. And when you have this sort of thing, you need your family. You need people around you. I mean, everybody's really brilliant on the phone, got lots of phone calls and lots of texts, and so is she, flowers and heaven knows what, but you just can't get near anybody, can you?
Would you mind, it would be nice, because we're only talking about your son in terms of his death, Maureen. Would you mind, you've told me a little bit about him, can you tell me a little bit more about him? Yeah.
Okay, he was lovely, had a wonderful sense of humour, a London cab driver, very happily married, adored his wife and his daughter, mad Spurs supporter. I was a long way. I always say I was a long way down the pecking order. First came his wife, then his daughter, then his dog, then Spurs, and then me. But we were great. We were a good family. We all got on very well.
What was he like? What was he like as a little boy?
Was he like? Well, he was a middle son. He was the middle of three boys. And I always think a middle one has a problem, a little bit of a problem. He was a little bit of a loner as a little boy, because being the middle one of three can sometimes be a problem, and they're very close together. I had three children very close in 4 years. So he was, if we played games, it was either the youngest one went first or the oldest one went first, always. It was never. So he was a little bit sensitive and a little bit of a loner as a very little boy, but that he grew out of that very well, and he was fine, absolutely fine. He was lovely, yeah. It made me laugh, and he lived he was the only one of my sons that lived really close. Although all of them are good, I can't complain at all. He was very close, so he was on hand. He came to me every Friday for his breakfast, and if I needed a bulb changed, he would change it, and if I left my keys, he had my keys. So he was a rock to me as well. He was good. It was just so sad.
It is. Maureen, if you want to, would you tell me his name? I don't mind if you don't want to tell me.
His name was Spencer.
Spencer. Well, we mourn Spencer with you, Maureen. You're not on your own. We're mourning with you.
Oh, that's so kind. You are so kind. This has been such a nice conversation. I needed somebody to talk to.
Really good to hear from you. And listen, feel free to call me again.
I will. Hopefully with not such terrible news.
Well, take care.
Thank you very much.
All the best to you and your family. Lots of love.
Goodbye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye. As the President said, he's not a doctor, but he's like a person that has a good you-know-what. Some people who are actual doctors have pointed out something very important, and I want to draw your attention to this. As BBC News reported, a pulmonologist, Dr. Vin Gupta, said, this notion of injecting or ingesting any type of cleansing product into the body is irresponsible and it's dangerous. Kassif Mahmood, a doctor in Charleston, West Virginia, tweeted, as a physician, I can't recommend injecting disinfectant into the lungs or using UV radiation inside the body to treat COVID-19. Don't take medical advice from Trump. John Barnes, a pulmonologist at Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital, warned that even breathing fumes from bleach could cause severe health problems. He told Bloomberg News, inhaling chlorine bleach would be absolutely the worst thing for the lungs. The airway and lungs are not made to be exposed to even an aerosol of disinfectant. Not even a low dilution of bleach or isopropyl alcohol is safe. It's a totally ridiculous concept. So the vital public health message we should all take, having heard the President's remarks, is you should ignore them and not follow them. His advice is dangerous. But what would cause the President of the United States to say such things on live television in the middle of the biggest public health crisis in living memory, in which thousands of his citizens are dying every day? A lot of people have been talking about this, trying to explain why the President would say something so stupid. I got to wondering whether there could be a medical explanation for the President's behaviour. Now, it's important for me to stress that, like the President, I'm not a doctor, but I'm like a person that has a good you-know-what. So I've been working on a theory of what happened yesterday, and after several minutes of Googling and lifting passages from websites, here's my diagnosis here on live radio, with my thanks to Wikipedia. In my opinion, the President appeared to be speaking from the final component of the gastrointestinal tract. I'm thinking of the internal sphincter and the external sphincter, which are circular muscles that normally maintain constriction of the orifice and which relaxes as required by normal physiological functioning. The inner sphincter is involuntary and the outer is voluntary. It's located behind the perineum. Judging by what we heard from the President, there's clearly a problem in this area of his body, and so I did some research as to how it might be cured. What treatments are there for problems in that area? And I thank the Mayo Clinic for this. Eat high-fibre foods. Eat more fruits, vegetables and whole grains. Use topical treatments. Apply an over-the-counter cream or suppository containing hydrocortisone, or use pads containing witch hazel or a numbing agent. Soak regularly in a warm bath or sitz bath. Take oral pain relievers. I stress again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm like a person that has a good you-know-what. I hope this helps. Given the numbers and the graphs that you've seen, and we'll see how many of those we have access to in the Downing Street briefing, which will start in about half an hour, given all of that you've seen, does it make any sense to you that these restrictions will be reviewed next Wednesday, December the 23rd, by which time, unless there is a change, by which time, before this review happens, the Christmas relaxation will have begun? Does that make any sense to you?
Look, we are where we are, Eddie. We are in the middle of a pandemic.
I know all of that. I'm asking you a specific question.
Well, and I'm going to give you a specific answer in that I hope we can come out as soon as possible.
Yes, we know all of that too. I'm asking you whether this makes any sense.
Well, whether it makes sense or not, we are in the situation we are in.
It's got to make sense. Why on earth should people adhere to something that's nonsense?
Well, I'm sorry. I've seen the figures today,
right,
and I do not want to see one more person.
Nobody does. So does it make sense for the rules to be relaxed next Wednesday before the review's been completed?
Well, I think we've all been promised that we can see our loved ones over Christmas between the 23rd and the 27th.
So you've seen the horrifying figures, but it's more important we see our loved ones at Christmas.
Well, people have to make their decision. I am not.
No, the government has to set the rules, and that's what we're talking about.
Let me finish. I am not. I have made a decision not to see my parents this Christmas because they live in Cardiff. I haven't seen my dad since August. He's got Alzheimer's. I don't know if he's going to ever recognise me again, but I've made that decision because I think it's the right thing to do. I do not want to put him at risk, and I don't want to put anybody else at risk. So we've all got to play our part, that whether you think it makes sense or not, we have got to all do our part and play and adhere to these restrictions, whether we like them or not. And
I understand that, but forgive me. My question is this, because you're saying it's very important we have strict rules. It's very important we have tier 3 right away. But you're saying it's also very important that from next Wednesday, because of the date in the calendar, because it's Christmas, we simply have to say to people, do what you think is best and make your own decisions with these more relaxed rules. And I'm just asking you whether you've seen the graphs, whether that actually makes any sense at all.
Well, and I go back to what I've just already said, is that people have got to make their decisions based on what they think is safe for themselves and their families and the rest of the community. I've made that decision myself. And, we've just got to work together on this, Eddie. And we have been promised that we can have Christmas with our loved ones. From a mental health point of view, I think people have got to make that decision what's best for them. And, it breaks my heart that I won't be able to see my parents, but that's a decision I've made.
Thanks for talking to us. We appreciate it. Nikki Aiken, Conservative MP for the cities of London and Westminster. Liz is in West Sussex. Liz, hi, how are you?
Oh, hello. Yeah, okay, I suppose.
You don't seem sure.
Well, I'm halfway through 2 weeks of isolation. I went down with symptoms end of last week, and
what symptoms did you have?
I had, it was a changing cough because I had a bit of a cough anyway. And I developed a temperature with it and very little else. Since then, temperatures fluctuated. It's up a bit today, but and just feeling a bit short of breath at the moment.
I can hear that, yeah.
But my fiance and my young son, who's not quite 2 yet, are obviously in isolation with me. So because we're a family, it's a family isolation.
And how's that working out for you all?
Well, for the three of us, we're fine. We haven't killed each other yet. We're fine. We're fine. But I do have an older son. He's just turned 16. In fact, it was his birthday last Sunday. Unfortunately, I couldn't be with him because he's managed to avoid the isolation. So he's actually staying with my parents in a neighbouring town, and it was sad because it's a bit of a milestone, turning 16, and we couldn't be there. But also, today's my birthday as well.
Happy birthday, Liz!
Thank you very much. And again, I couldn't see my family today either. My parents and my son, and of course today was also my son's last day ever at school, and that's come as quite a blow to him. I've spoken to him on the phone, but sometimes, you want to give that parental hug and everything, and I don't know, it just feels a bit cruel. We've been denied that one, and I think that's probably been the hardest thing of all. But I don't know how many other people out there have found their family units have been split, and it just everything seems to be happening this last week.
Are you all right, Liz? You sound a bit up in the air.
Yeah, no, it's fine. On a lesser note as well. I mean, my job is unsure at the moment.
What do you do?
I work in a museum, and we're quite small. Naturally, we've had to close our doors, and it's unlikely that we will reopen again this year. I don't know, but it's one of those things where you kind of wish that you had just been made redundant, because then that you can I'm on the radio.
Yeah, she's on the radio.
Give me a sec.
Give it a sec.
Sorry.
That's all right.
But then you know where you stand, and you can just crack on, because obviously there's no one doesn't get paid in a situation like this.
Of course.
So,
Liz, I'm so sorry that all of these things have combined at this moment in your life. And I can't make anything better, but you know what I'm going to do for you? And I've never done this before, and I'll never do it again for reasons which will become apparent. And if people want to wash their hands along with this, I'm going to sing happy birthday to you.
Oh.
Happy birthday to you. I'm coming over all Marilyn Monroe now, aren't I? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Liz. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you.
It hasn't helped at all, has it, Liz? But I made the effort.
No, do you know what? I'm smiling. I'll be honest, there have been tears on the way. But
there are people crying now.
But no, thank you.
Liz, all the best. Would you stay in touch with us? Let you know how you get on.
I will. Thank
all right,
you.
I'll let you get back to your interruption there.
On the subject of unity, I think anybody who's watched this negotiation take place in Manchester in the last couple of weeks, it is now, and other negotiations taking place across the country, my real strong feeling, being based in the North and working with Northern colleagues, is that the people of the North want politics put aside to deal with this crisis. They want Andy Burnham working with the government.
How can politicians put politics aside? Why would politicians want politics to be put aside? That's what you do.
Well, great national events and crises call for us to move beyond petty politics. We've seen it in both of the world wars with governments of national unity.
This is not a world war.
Right. No, but in terms of the economic impact on our economy and the amount of time it's going to take us to pay back the debt for it, it's probably not that far short of it.
Well, in that case, get Boris Johnson to invite Keir Starmer into his cabinet.
Well, I don't think it's too much for people who live in regions of the United Kingdom to say, look, guys, take your rosettes off, stop this, hairy chest competition that you're having about money and who's in charge, who's not in charge. Come up with a solution that works best for us and the people where we live. And I think if any politician wants to use this crisis as a sort of political football, whether they be a Conservative Prime Minister and Cabinet or a Labour Mayor in Greater Manchester, I think that the people will turn against them because of it.
So at times when it's very difficult for the country, politicians should forget which party they're from and simply work with the other people. That's what should happen. So we should abandon the very crux of how a democratic system works at a time like this.
I think at a time like this, people expect people to put political differences aside and work in the national interest. Maybe you think that's, maybe people think that isn't what should happen. It's certainly what I think.
Well, which leads me to ask you again, would you like to see, let's take that to its logical conclusion, if it's okay for regional leaders to put down their party rosettes and whatever you said about hairy chests, should Boris Johnson invite Sir Keir Starmer into his cabinet?
Well, we're not at that position, but there has been.
This is the point you're making.
Well, no, I think you're being a little bit mischievous about it.
Not at all. I'm following your argument to its logical conclusion. If there is a national crisis, tell me why it's okay for regional leaders to set aside party political differences, but not national ones. And by the way, we've had lots of texts and tweets over the months, and including in recent weeks, from people saying, I would love to see a government of national unity.
Well, let me answer the question. I'm not suggesting that we go to government of national unity. No. What I am suggesting is that people want to see politicians drop opposition for opposition's sake. And lots of the time in the House of Commons and lots of the time in politics around this country, opposition parties oppose really for the sake of opposition. I think people expect that to be dropped at the moment. And you did see it at the start of this crisis between March and, in fact, up to Keir Starmer calling for a national lockdown, which is the first break he'd really made away from supporting government policy. You did see that, and I think our response to this crisis was better for it.
Matthews is the owner of the Prince Rupert Hotel in Shrewsbury, which currently houses 31 homeless people. Mike, welcome to the programme. How are you?
Thank you very much indeed for inviting me on, and I'm extremely well, so thank you.
It's good to hear from you. And do you prefer Shrewsbury or Shrewsbury, by the way?
How many hours have you got of this show? That's a huge debate.
Yeah, we're going to try and solve homelessness tonight, and then we'll get on to Shrewsbury another time. Let's start with your situation. Tell me about your hotel, first of all.
The Prince Rupert is a very, very ancient, historic Grade 2-star listed hotel. Dates back to the 12th century, was the former home of Prince Rupert himself, who was the grandson of King James I, and Prince Rupert lived here in the mid-1600s. It has 70 bedrooms. We are AA 4-star status, and we have 3 restaurants. So a lot of character, a lot of personality in this hotel, creaking floorboards, wood paneling, dozens of original features, and we are situated right bang in the very heart of the most medieval aspect of Shrewsbury.
And when did you get your name above the door, and what's it all about for you?
Well, I arrived here in 1996, so getting on for, I think we're just about to conclude 25 years or thereabouts. And since then, of course, we've been operating the hotel and enjoying being hoteliers as a family, along with my 3 children. We're all involved at some stages of their career, and my wife. And it's been a wonderful experience living in this wonderful, fantastic town. And for those people who haven't been to Shrewsbury, it's probably one of the nicest, beautiful towns in the country.
Hard work, though, your line of work. Hard work.
Well, you don't go into the hotel business without realizing this is a potentially 7-day-a-week operation, and it doesn't stop at 5 o'clock, obviously. It goes into the evenings, the weekends, all those wonderful family days which you miss, which is New Year's Day, Boxing Days, Mothering Sundays, etc., New Year's Eve. It's something that you commit to in your early 20s. I'm in my 60s now, so I've been doing it long enough to understand that the hotel is a way of life. And I don't think you can get away from that.
Tell me about how your way of life at the hotel changed some months ago.
We were getting ready for lockdown. Government had instructed all hotels to close, and going back now to mid-March, which seems many, many years ago now to me. I didn't want to close the hotel down. You know, as I said, this hotel is getting on for 900 years old. I don't think it's ever been closed. And I was racking my brains to think, how on earth do I keep this building open? To close it down would be complex. It's not an easy building to simply just lock the doors and walk away from. And I had a phone call from Shropshire Council, totally out of the blue, which they simply said to me, would you consider meeting with us and housing the homeless during the coronavirus outbreak? I met them that afternoon. I listened to what they had to say. I then subsequently had a second meeting the next morning with my team and with the council again. And I just simply said, if everyone's up for this, I am as well. This sounds like a project, a challenge that I really want to get involved in. And, you know, I'll be honest with you. I will give you the truthful answer. Had I been involved with the homeless before, or had I simply walked past them as they were curled up in the doorways of the streets? And I have to rather sadly say that I belong to the second category. And I guess that's the truth is a lot of people fall into that category, that you simply go about your business knowing they're there, but not actually doing much about it to solve the issue or solve the problem. So the project itself seemed quite a humbling one. I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I knew some of these characters only from sight. I'd never spoken to any. When the first guest arrived, we called them guests. Let's not make that very clear. And sorry, let me just go back. We decided from the outset that we would run the hotel simply as a 4-star hotel. We weren't going to change any of our services whatsoever. And it would have been more complex to actually make that change. When the first guest walked into our hotel looking extremely bedraggled, clearly malnutritious, his body had actually withered away, very, very bedraggled clothes, clearly hadn't washed in a number of weeks or months. We took him to his room and he simply burst into tears, as did our staff. So there's quite an emotional start to this whole procedure, really. And that same night, he walked out of the hotel at around midnight and took his sleeping bag and went back to where he'd been living for the best part of 15 to 20 years, not realizing that he could stay overnight. He's Polish, and so the next day we typed out a letter. We gave it to him, and it simply said, "You are welcome to stay. This is your new home." And he returned, and he's been with us now for 3 months.
What about things like their clothes?
They all, without exception now, have all got brand new clothes. The kindness that Shrewsbury has shown during this pandemic has been phenomenal. We have been donated bucket loads of clothes from the community of this town. We've allocated 2 of our bedrooms now to actually house them all. And as the clothes come in, and some of these are brand new, it's not necessarily secondhand. So some of the shops are contributing as well. We are able to provide them with brand new clothes. And if you can just imagine someone that has lived in the same clothes for decades, and then suddenly to be washed, cleaned, fed, and to be proud of themselves again, the dignity, the respect, which is they've never had for many, many years, has now returned, and it's a marvel to actually see. We have 2 individuals who have spent over 35 years living on the streets. And, you do the calculations, that's over 13,000 nights. And I would challenge anybody to spend one night. I couldn't even relate to it, how you can spend one night with a blanket, a pillow if you're lucky, and a couple of rags as your clothes, crumbled into a corner, trying to shelter from the rain and the freezing cold winter nights, but let alone spend over 13,000 with no electricity, no central heating, no hot food, no hot drinks. And in the morning, you are just purely worried about whether your belongings are being taken or not. So the night is spent worried about your safety, just trying to survive. And to spend 13,000 nights in that situation, you have to say, these are born survivors. They are in this predicament often because of situations that have occurred in their younger years. And we are all born into this world the same. Our paths go off in different directions. And as I've learnt, that a lot of our guests have just been very unlucky in their fortunes, no more than that.
And Mike, what are your plans for the hotel? I talked about some of these schemes changing. What's going to happen to your current guests?
Well, since we've been doing this, remember, our remit was to provide accommodation and food at dinner. And obviously we've done breakfast, lunch, and other meals as well. We moved into the hotel, myself and my senior management team moved into the hotel so that we could look after these individuals in a far better place than if we'd been going home to our own families on a nightly basis. I think by doing that, we have created a relationship and a rapport and a friendship with them, which is almost like a bond. There's mutual trust between ourselves now. And because of that, I think the PR that has been generated through radios and TV interviews, which none of this, I went into this to get, but it has come my way, has generated also funding to ensure that our guests will be housed in correct housing when they leave here. And also, and this is really important, because you can't just give some of these individuals a house, but they will have wraparound support. And by that, I mean people that will care for them in terms of shopping, cooking, cleaning, providing mental health support for them, correcting the addictions of drug and alcohol. And remember, some of these people have all three issues going on. So these are highly complex individuals that you just cannot say, here is a house and we'll leave you to it. That will not work from what I understand and what I've seen in the last 3 months. They need that wraparound support around them to keep the process going of what we are doing. Otherwise, what would be the point? The last 3 months would be complete wasted energy by ourselves and all the team around me.
Which brings me to the question I've been asking this hour, and I'm thrilled that in your neck of the woods, something positive is happening after COVID. Is there any reason you think why this can't be replicated everywhere?
It's a good question, and it's something that I and my team discuss with our fellow guests. We have pretty in-depth discussions about this because obviously they're concerned about their future. They know they're safe from the virus within the hotel. That's the most important thing, and that's why they came here, essentially. Can it be replicated? Well, as you know, the government have initiated a huge plan to provide many thousand, I think we're talking about 6,000 homeless houses for the homeless. And Robert Jenrick and Dame Louise Casey have been heading up that initiative and doing a fantastic job in showing that will happen. If you gave me a magic wand, from what I've seen from my own experience, remember, I'm not an expert in this, I'm not a guru in this, but I have lived with these individuals for 3 months. I would say that what we have done here, if you can replicate that elsewhere in the country, then it has to be better than simply providing a house. Because, as I say, you're not going to solve the problem of individuals who require more assistance than just a roof over their head. They are highly complex. And to provide that support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, almost like a halfway house between the streets here and then onto something else, is, in my view, the answer. And to build many, many thousands of houses will take a long time. Regrettably, as part of the virus situation, it seems to me there are more and more hotels that are struggling and indeed may not even open their doors again. There are more and more care homes which are in the same position. I see it every day. One went into receivership today in Surrey, over 200 bedrooms. For me, it seemed logical sense to acquire these properties fully staffed, so you're saving unemployment, and to run them as shelters, if you call it, or for want of a better word, or a property, as the Prince Rupert has done, to provide that support for these individuals to rehabilitate them from their history of sleeping rough and to bring them back into society again. I cannot tell you the improvement that I have witnessed in some of these individuals, apart from the physical improvements. We had 2 individuals arrive yesterday who have been rough sleeping for quite some time, and they looked completely malnourished compared to our guests now. So because I'm with them every day, I don't see that improvement. But it's only when you see somebody
you saw the
coming
contrast.
In fresh that you see, my God, what have we done here to these individuals?
Well,
I've even got one working virtually full-time with us now.
Mike, you've done amazing things. I congratulate you and thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, you're the sort of person I aspire to be, and I want to read this tweet from a listener, Pops, who says, I know what it's like to be homeless. What a bloody fantastic example of humanity this hotelier is. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I can't put it any better than that. Mike, thanks very much for talking to us, and I wish you well.
My sincere pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's Mike Matthews. And if, like me, you're already planning a trip to Shrewsbury at some point, or Shrewsbury, that's the Prince Rupert Hotel.
It does seem extraordinary when we need to be propping up in every way that we can. We will deliver this double whammy. And what the leaders will do is that they will hide behind COVID. And when our economy suffers in the most dreadful way that it will, everything will be blamed on COVID, when undoubtedly some of it will be blamed on the fact that we've left the European Union. It is the stuff of madness, but we are where we are. And I think this government has, it's got a mandate for not just for leaving the European Union, which we've done, but also not extending the transition period and leaving in that event without a deal. And I just think it's a terrible tragedy. And I think that's how history will record it, that our country has made a terrible mistake.
Which brings me to a tweet here, which says, I've not changed my mind. We should rejoin the EU immediately, and this time fully join with the Euro and Schengen. Well, look, leaving aside the Euro and Schengen arguments,
Good God.
do you,
I don't share that view.
No, I know, but do you have it in you? Do you think it's desirable? Do you think it's imperative for people like you, before the end of the transition period and certainly after, to say, right, we need to get back in?
No. Good God. Look, people are fed up to back teeth with Brexit. I mean, I actually was saying that back in, if you look at my speeches in Parliament, I was saying that back in 2016.
But if you believe it's in the national interest to be part of the European Union, isn't it incumbent upon you, no matter how bored people are, to say this is what's best?
Well, no, I mean, I do what I've just said. But I'm also a realist. And the reality is we've left the European Union. I don't think there's an appetite at large for some movement that would win widespread support for us to rejoin, because we haven't even fully left yet. I think it will be my children's generation that will do it. I think we'll be back in the EU in 10 years' time. Of course, we'll never get the unique and very special and very good deal that we once had. So no doubt the EU will say, well, if you want to rejoin, you've got to join the Euro, you've got to join Schengen. We were in a unique position, but hey, no point looking backwards. We've got to look to the future. But I think that the COVID crisis, Eddie, is just so terrible and so concerning. It is not just about lives, though that obviously is our primary concern, but it really is about people's livelihoods. And I think my real fear is what is the future for our youngsters, because they are the ones who will be picking up the tab.
Your policy of a national lockdown, what restrictions would there be?
Well, on my understanding of that would be it would be close to the kind of level that is a tier 3.
Right. And that's really why I was asking you about London, because if you're saying to me that the policy of your party is to have a nationwide something similar to tier 3, why aren't you calling for that for London now?
The government have said to us that they do not want to go down that path for a national.
Yes,
lockdown.
I'm asking about your party's policy.
I don't think I can answer that question.
I mean, I'm here to, I was here to tell you about the conversation that had been had this morning with the briefing,
right?
And about London. I can't tell you the exact figure,
right?
Which that would
no. Again, I'm not looking for an exact figure. I think we've established that, as you've told me, you believe Labour's policy on a circuit breaker, which you'd like to see applied nationally, would be a bit like Tier 3. And I'm just asking you, therefore, if that's good for the nation, in your view, why isn't it good for London? Why not have Tier 3 in London now?
Well, I mean, again, I think that the answer to that really is about the fact that our preference is to have a national response. And that the local, now that the government are saying that they are not going to do that, what we are looking at is the response that the government have said that they're going to move London up into Tier 2, and we don't have to see whether that Tier 2 is going to be effective and follow the data, see if that's
right.
if that's the case, and whether that's going to be successful.
All right, I think that's clear.
Well, I don't think Wales has ever come out of lockdown. We had 4 weeks where they had eat out and go out and enjoy yourself. We had 4 weeks really of that. And then we went back into local lockdown, which I've been in my town for 5 weeks. It was only meant to be 14 days. And now we're going into another lockdown. I think this will go on all through next year. I think we'll go into lockdown at Christmas. There'll be one then. Anybody who's got a business look at their sick records of staff, you'll know that January, February, March. I think there'll be another one. I think it's just going to continue probably for another 2 years, like the Spanish flu. It's going to be a while. I think my worry is I've not had a penny of support from the government. I'm not a business rate payer. I'm a small business, self-employed. And I think it was just the furlough and the business rate payers have been helped. There's many, many businesses not being supported. And I've had not a penny. I think my fear is now is when they do open up again, in, say, 17 days' time, the borders are open, England's going to start coming back into Wales, we're back to square one. This is not going to go away. We need to be able to live with it and manage it.
How are you surviving financially, Nikki?
I've had to use all my savings, and I think unless it was because I had a 6-month break on my mortgage, I think I would be in a lot of trouble. I've had to use all my savings, all the money I had, cancel holidays, and it's been really, really tough. It's probably been one of the toughest things I've ever had to deal with. And I think it's the fear of not knowing what we're going into in the future is very, very scary.
What line of work are you in? What job do you do?
Holiday let business, holiday letting. And of course, you could only have one group of people from one household, no more than 6 people. So many of the bookings were people going away in families and birthday celebrations. They haven't been able, I've lost thousands and thousands of pounds. And of course, you've got all the refunds. People leave deposits. Thousands and thousands of pounds have gone out, but nothing's come in. I haven't had a penny of support. I've tried all the grants, all the funds, all the business accounts. You cannot get a business account in the UK from any UK bank. They're all closed. You try and apply for one, you can't. You can't get one.
You sound
There's
stressed.
Not even any loans.
You sound stressed just telling me about it.
It is very, very worrying. Very worrying.
When you hear about this new lockdown coming, and as you say, you've been through it, and the most recent lockdown you thought was 2 weeks, it went on for 5, can you cope with it?
It's horrible. You're just locked in. There's nothing to do. You know, I've done all the painting of the property. I've done all the things in the garden in the summer. There's nothing now. There's nothing left. It's just all just staying in. We're just waiting for it to end.
Do you think people will abide by this week's lockdown?
They are. People are abiding by. If you go in the supermarkets, everyone's got their mask on. Everyone's doing it. We shouldn't have them locked up. We shouldn't be locking up the healthy people. They should be out working. I've been in since March. I've hardly been out. I haven't seen my partner. I haven't seen my family. 4 weeks we had to see our family. I haven't seen my children. I speak to them now, FaceTime. My parents haven't seen their grandchildren. I haven't seen the new babies born. I haven't seen my sister since March.
Do you have any faith? Do you have any faith, Nikki, that the measures are going to work?
They're not going to work. This virus is here. This is nature. Nature's here to take the population down. The weak and the vulnerable is going to happen. But we've got to keep mindful of the people who are living. I'm petrified of losing my home. I'm petrified of losing everything.
Have you spoken to your mortgage company again?
Yes, they've given 6 months, but now it's back. It's back now. You've got to start paying again. There's no more relief. There's no funding. There is nothing. None of those grants, none of those things they say are here for us are here.
I'm so sorry, Nikki. I'm so sorry.
I've used all my savings. No one can live for 1 year with no money coming in. And all my business and all my bookings have gone. Everyone.
I'm going to be speaking to Mark Dreyford, the First Minister, in a little while. Is there anything I can ask him on your behalf?
Yeah, he has a program called React. He also has a program called Kickstart. They're there to help people who lose their job, and I lost my job last year, to get off benefits and to get out there work. I lost a 50 grand a year job. I was losing everything. I went on his system, and then COVID came, and I had a business set up ready because I knew you can't live on £79 a week. Who's going to pay your mortgage? The government don't pay your mortgage. They only pay people who are on benefits and housing benefits. They don't save you. And I knew straight away I had to save. I had to make myself get a job. So I thought, I'll use all my skills and I'll set up my own business. And they put me through a program to help you get a new business. And I set it up through the government. And they haven't supported us. The people who they said were going to give you all. I had £2,000 funding for training courses. I did everything. The government wanted me to go back to work. And they didn't give me anything now. They've just left us. And now they're promoting those same programs, saying we've got Wales sorted because we've got React and we've got Kickstart. No, I'm still trying to get Kickstart for March. There's nothing. They're not giving you anything. They give you £69 or £79 a week, and that is it. Nothing else. You can't pay your gas, your electric, your car, your insurance, your mortgage. You can't pay anything. £69 a week. People would spend that going to the gym and just buying a few fruit juices. There's nothing there. So you're just constantly living on fear of knowing and just thinking, we've got to get back. Keep the vulnerable in. Lock away the people who need to be taken care of. Everyone will do that. We can't allow these businesses. I'm looking at the brewery, my village pub, Brains Brewery, one of the biggest employers in Wales. It's terrible. They're going to lose all of their pubs, all the businesses, the villages and all the rural towns here. We need the tourism, and I think they've killed it for Wales.
What about your partner, Nikki?
I haven't been able to see him. He doesn't live here.
How's he getting on?
Not good, because his business is suffering too. He's got a very, very successful business, and he's worried sick he's going to lose his business too. And we've all got our properties and houses against these as collateral and things. It's awful. I just think the government are just purely helping business rate payers and furlough. Everyone else, they've just left. They can't say we're just the 5%. We're not just the 5%. I've worked all my life. I never asked to lose my job. The retail was doing bad and I lost my job. And the government got these programs which are crap. They don't work. They're a waste of money. Why am I still here now if these programs work? I'm an educated person from a good job and I've got a £500,000 house. I'm going to lose everything.
Nikki, I'm so sorry. First of all, I'll put your question to the First Minister, but also I don't know if you know we have our good friend Claire Barrett, who works at the Financial Times, and she's spoken over the months to many listeners in serious situations like yours. Would you mind if we passed on your details to Claire? Because she may well have suggestions for you that even someone as smart as you hasn't been able to think of. She may be able to suggest levers that you can pull that might help you in this terrible situation you're in. Would that be okay?
Please, but I have tried. I've done everything.
No, I'm sure you have, Nikki.
I just keep saying no.
Of course. And I can't promise that Claire will be able to help, but she's quite astonishingly good at knowing stuff that even you may not have thought of. So if I can pass on your details, I hope we can help you.
Okay, thank you.
Now, you and I are both listeners to LBC, and over the years, we've listened to politicians being interviewed here and elsewhere. We've come to accept that sometimes the politicians don't always answer the questions put to them. And sometimes, as listeners, we get cross with the politicians. Sometimes we get cross with the interviewers too. Journalists, and I certainly include myself in this failing, don't always ask the right questions, or don't follow up when they should, or they follow up too much. It's far from perfect. I'm guilty of all that. What happens in normal times is that when we hear that sort of stuff going on, we shout at the radio at stupid questions or useless answers, and then we move on. But these are not normal times. These nightly Downing Street question and answer sessions are the only guaranteed regular occasion in the whole day when the UK gets to hear what the government is thinking. Listeners have told me on the air just last week that they're cooped up at home all day, and for better or worse, they look forward to those Downing Street briefings. They find them really crucial. There are so many important things we want to know about. Not just the lockdown, but PPE, testing, herd immunity, death rates, care homes, ventilators, political leadership, hospital capacity, and more. So, when questions are not answered, it's no longer just about shouting at the radio. It's much more important. It is about our health, our fears, our anxieties. It's important those are taken seriously by the people who are answering the questions. And last Friday, that did not happen. On Friday, it was the Business Secretary, Alex Sharma, who was in charge. In his opening scripted remarks, he thanked each and every person across the UK who was following and supporting the government's advice to stay at home. And he wanted to pay heartfelt tribute to all the scientists and researchers. And who could argue with any of that? Certainly not me. But what happened when the questions began? Emma Hutchinson from ITV Anglia asked something inspired by what another government minister had said on Friday.
Can I ask about the tourism industry? This morning, the Transport Secretary said he wouldn't be booking a summer holiday. In the east of England, the tourism industry is worth £7.5 billion. Can you offer any hope to that industry that there will be some kind of summer season this year?
Fair question. Alex Sharma's response did not address the question about offering hope for the existence of a summer season.
The first thing I want to say is that I speak to businesses and business representative organisations every day, and I know how tough it is for a lot of businesses. That is why we have put in place the measures that we have in terms of supporting businesses, and particularly in terms of hospitality and leisure and retail. As you know, those businesses have a business rates holiday for a year. And in fact, for smaller businesses within those sectors, they're going to get a grant, and many of them have started to receive a grant of £25,000 as well.
Gordon Rayner from the Daily Telegraph was next, asking about the future.
You told the CBI earlier today that businesses and employees would have to get used to a new normal, and that things won't go back to the way they were even when the lockdown is lifted. Can you explain what you mean by new normal? And are you saying that some restrictions will have to stay in place until there's a vaccine, which, as Sir Patrick says, is a long way off?
That's an interesting question, and you might expect Alex Sharma to be interested in answering it, because he himself had raised the idea of a new normal. Earlier on Friday, at an online question and answer session with the business organisation, the CBI, he brought up, twice, without prompting, that term, new normal. Here's what he said at the CBI event.
There is clearly a dialogue that, certainly from a base perspective, has been going on with business on a very regular basis, and we will continue that dialogue. I think whatever decisions are made, I think we all have to accept that there will be a new normal. The level at which social distancing will continue, you can have a discussion around that, but clearly we are not going to go back to the way we were before this pandemic. I think everybody appreciates that, and I think businesses appreciate that. And the conversations that I've had individually with CEOs as well, there is a recognition that how you operate in the workforce, in the workplace, also has to adapt to social distancing norms. So I think that is going to be with us for a period of time. And I don't think anyone, either commentators or businesses or the public, thinks otherwise.
Not surprising then that later, at the live Downing Street briefing on Friday night, Gordon Rayner from The Telegraph would want to know more about Alex Sharma's self-described new normal. Here again is the question, this time with the answer.
You told the CBI earlier today that businesses and employees would have to get used to a new normal and that things won't go back to the way they were even when the lockdown is lifted. Can you explain what you mean by new normal? And are you saying that some restrictions will have to stay in place until there's a vaccine, which, as Sir Patrick says, is a long way off?
Yeah, so let me talk a little bit about in terms of the workplace. We've been very clear that we are asking people to stay at home to protect the NHS and save lives, and very large numbers of our population are doing that. And we've also said in terms of work is that if you're able to work from home, you must absolutely do that, and employers are supporting people to do that, and I think that's very, very welcome. There are certain work settings, so you may be in the manufacturing sector or indeed the construction sector, where it is not possible to work from home and you have to go in. And what we have said is that in those circumstances, people can go into work. However, it's also incumbent on employers to make sure that they're following the Public Health England guidance in terms of working safely in the workplace. And certainly the conversations that I have had with employers, with employer organisations, I know that is what they're doing, they're adapting, and that's what I mean about the fact that where there is a work setting and people and those workplaces are open and people are going to work, we have to adapt the way that we are working, so we do that in a safe way and keeping employees safe.
As you heard, no explanation there of what new normal might be. Instead, Alex Sharma repeated the government's guidance to us all. Stay home, protect the NHS, save lives. Gordon Rayner from The Telegraph was perplexed.
I don't quite understand whether what you're saying is that you expect people to carry on working from home until there's a vaccine, or whether you're saying that you expect people to go back to work normally but just to have social distancing.
No, well, let me clarify, and I apologise if I've not been clear on this.
To be clear, that's Alex Sharma apologising if he'd not been clear. And to be even clearer, he wasn't clear. He was asked whether in future people would have to stay at home until there was a vaccine. His response again was not to answer. He chose instead to repeat the government's guidance to us all: stay home, protect the NHS, save lives.
The measures that have been put in place were renewed yesterday, and we have made very clear that the message to the public is, for at least the next 3 weeks, follow the guidance that we put out, which is you must stay at home. It is about protecting the NHS, and ultimately it's about saving the lives of individuals as well.
Joshua Mortimer from Left Foot Forward had a question about NHS staff.
As you know, care workers and NHS staff are putting their lives on the line each and every day to get us through this crisis. Was it a mistake for your government to brand those people as low-skilled labour?
Before we hear the response, a bit of background information. In February, the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, announced the government's post-Brexit immigration controls. Anyone earning less than £25,000 a year would be deemed an unskilled worker and not allowed to enter the UK. As was pointed out at the time, many starting salaries in the NHS are below that £25,000 threshold, the level officially deemed by the government to be unskilled. Nurses, £24,000. Paramedics, £24,000. Midwives, £24,000. Radiographers, £24,000. Care assistants, £17,000. I mentioned a moment ago that in Alex Sharma's scripted remarks, he expressed his heartfelt thanks to lots of people and paid tribute to others. As the questions continued on Friday from journalists, Alex Sharma often did not directly respond, choosing instead again to express his heartfelt thanks like a drunken Oscar winner. The question from Joshua Mortimer had been this: was it a mistake for your government to brand these people as low-skilled labour? Here's the response.
I want to pay tribute, and I think you will find that absolutely everyone in government is absolutely united on this. We want to pay tribute to the selfless work that is going on across the NHS, across the social care sector, the way actually the whole country is coming together to deal with this particular issue. We need to make sure that we provide support to those who are supporting us, and that's why you've seen the work that has been going on in terms of testing, in terms of making sure that PPE gets to the front line, and we will continue to do that. I want to be very clear on this, is that the NHS and NHS workers are absolutely vital to us. We support them because they support us, and I'm very grateful for absolutely everything that they do.
Clearly, if heartfelt tributes were hard cash, the low-skilled workers of the NHS would be millionaires. In his follow-up question, Joshua Mortimer pointed out that many care workers were on minimum wage. Would Alex Sharma commit to ensuring they would get full pay and full sick pay? Alex Sharma completely ignored the question about carers and chose to talk instead about testing and schemes for private business, including furloughing.
Firstly, can I say just in terms of testing, so we've had 66,000 NHS staff and social care staff and their families who've been through the testing process. When it comes to making sure that support is provided, there's a whole range of support that we've provided to individuals and businesses, particularly in terms of the furlough schemes, in terms of grants. So we will continue to provide that support. And we've also said when it comes to statutory sick pay, of course, we will support smaller businesses as well for a 2-week period. So there is a lot that I think the government has done, but I want to be absolutely clear with you, Josh, is that we very much value the heroes that we have across our country within the NHS and, of course, in the social care sector as well, and we will continue to do that.
No answer to the question of whether they would get full pay and full sick pay. The final question at Friday's news conference went to Peter Madley from the Express and Star.
We've seen forecasts of the damage that coronavirus is going to do to the UK economy. Bearing in mind that the Treasury's coffers are being emptied out at the moment and will continue to be so for the foreseeable future, why are you proceeding with HS2, which is a Conservative estimate it's going to cost more than £100 billion? Would it not be prudent to at least suspend work on the project while the country tries to get back on its feet?
How did Alex Sharma respond? You'll be shocked to know he didn't even mention HS2. Instead, the Business Secretary decided this was the moment to pay tribute to people who are working from home.
Well, Peter, I think firstly, I want to pay tribute to the businesses that are working, that are carrying on, the people who are working from home, those who are going into work settings where they can't work from home. And I think it's really important we do everything we can to keep the economy going. But you're right, there is a major impact on our economy.
And with that, it was almost over. Time and again, faced with questions about pay for NHS staff and carers, questions about government spending, about the collapse of tourism, about explaining his own definition of new normal, Alex Sharma chose to fall back on thanking people, paying tribute, and repeating the government's advice. I agree we should thank everyone who's making sacrifices right now, and we can't pay tribute enough to everyone who's working hard to keep the country going. But thanks and tributes should not be trotted out as a substitute for answering reasonable questions. Otherwise, people might begin to doubt the sincerity of the thanks and tributes. Here's how Alex Sharma ended his news briefing on Friday.
I want to thank everyone for what they're doing. So please continue to follow the very clear advice that the government has set out, which is stay at home, protect the NHS, because ultimately this is about saving your life and the life of someone you love. Thank you so much.
I agree that the message, stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives, cannot be repeated often enough. But it should not be trotted out as a substitute for answering reasonable questions. Otherwise, people might think ministers' main concern is stay on message, protect your backside, save your job. Let me know what you think.